We dance as the city roars. Tune in loud, turn up some more. Cincinnati show, it's time to play. Sports with strawberry ice today. 5:30 sharp, don't be late. CTV, the sports awaits. Strawberry icy's on the mic, energy, it's good delight. Every touchdown, every goal. Feel the pulse, it's in your soul. Cincinnati heartbeats strong. Strawberry ice will lead the throng. Every touchdown, every goal. Feel the pulse, it's in your soul. Cincinnati heartbeats strong. Strawberry ice will lead the throng. Feel the crowd, it's electric now. Shouting loud, they all know how. The CTV got what we crave. Sports with ice, it's waves and waves. Tigers strike and Bengals roar. Every game we want some more. Tune it in and feel the thrill. Strawberry ice, he's giving chills. 5:30 sharp, don't be late. CTV, the sports awaits. Strawberry ice, he's on the mic, energy, it's pure delight.
Shit. Hey guys, my microphone is not plugged in. 1 second. Wow. Oh my goodness. Hold on a second. I'm getting there. It looks so professional, I know. Check. All right, there we go. Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the show. Sorry, I was getting everything ready, and then Ian came on. He goes, "My mic sound good?" I was like, "Yeah." Then I looked at mine. I hit the intro, looked at mine, and my cord wasn't plugged in. So, live show, people. What's going on? Welcome to the show. This is Sports with Strawberry Ice. I'm your host, Iceman Jeff Trunapole, and as always, I bring you sports from West Side point of view, right here in the great city of Cincinnati, Ohio. And as always, I'm coming to you live from the Ice Cave. The Ice Cave is brought to you by Priority Lawn and Landscaping. The grass is getting greener slowly. Spring's coming. We got rain today, so it's going to make your grass grow. You don't want to cut it this year? Give Priority Lawn and Landscaping a call. You got leaves that are left there from last year in your yard. You want them cleaned out? Give Priority Lawn and Landscaping a call. You got a paper patio or some kind of project you want to get done? Give Priority Lawn and Landscaping a call at 513-430-6114. That's 513-430-6114. What is up to everybody in the chat? We got Brandon there. Tony Blaze and Jerome. Natty Ron's in there. Yeah. There we go. That's everybody's in the chat. All right, guys. News of the day before we get to Ian Cummings here. Sam Hubbard has retired, which isn't exactly surprising. We thought that might happen. It's a little sad day. He had one of the greatest plays in Bengals history, the fumble in the jungle. It was awesome. I was there, and it was one of the coolest.
From Ohio State, Cincinnati's own Sam
Never forget Sam for that play.
Seeing that 513 number pop up on draft
He's
day
awesome guy.
Just to get
He
an
will be missed.
opportunity to
Hopefully he
represent
can stay in the
Cincinnati,
organization. I know he wants to work
to do
on
it for the
more on
pro
the Sam
team in
Hubbard
this city. It's a
Foundation.
dream come true.
So hats off to
Third
Sam
and
on
goal
his
from the
career.
9. Mahomes
And,
catches the shotgun
we
snap,
see him,
retreats
around
back to
the
the
yeah,
25,
maybe
loses the ball.
Mike Brown had some pretty good comments for him. He said Sam has always been and always be a wonderful part of the Cincinnati Bengals organization and the entire Cincinnati community. Growing up here, he was a top young athlete and local gridirons across field before becoming a stand-up football player at the Ohio State University. We were fortunate to draft him in 2018, and we knew that we added an outstanding player and even a better person. It goes on. Read the rest of it. It is, like I said, it's kind of a sad day here, but
Ball. They
that's
are
what
running it
happens
back.
when
Sam Hubbard.
have players like that, and they're going to, come and go. And Sam has come and went. I had to turn this down there. This is a good start off to the show here. All right, let's get. We got the Bearcats tonight taking on Kansas State. Starts at 7:00. It's Ring of Red, and it's on ESPN Plus, and it is a senior night. The Bengals also signed Jackson Kirkland today to a one-year deal. So there are some movings and shaking going on with the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's get, before I keep stumbling over what the heck I got going on here, let's get to the man who is, in my opinion, one of the best draft guys. He's literally, when he starts talking, he just spits the stuff out because he has got it all locked up in here. He's from Pro Football Network. He is Ian Cummings. Ian, what is going on, my man?
What's going on, Ice? It's good to see you. It's good to be back. It's
awesome. Just having a little discombobulation here at the beginning of the show.
It's good. It's good. Is the intro video, the hype song, is that new? I don't remember that last year.
Yeah, that's new. I got
okay.
AI. That's not me singing on it.
I was gonna say you got some pipes, man, for sure.
Yes, for sure. Exactly. That is AI. But yeah, it's a. I can change it up every once in a while. Get some. I got some. We'll change it up again. Everybody's like, "You're always changing your intro." I'm like, gotta keep everybody on their toes. All right, so just real quick with Sam Hubbard retiring? What's your thoughts on just Sam as a player and his career from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, looking at it from a distance, he was always one of those guys who was like dependable, right? I know from a national perspective, like you look at his stats every year, he's got 6, 7, 8 sacks, but then I imagine the run defense is good too with his size. I'm talking about scouting already here, but I mean, I imagine the greater impact is what he meant to Cincinnati and the state of Ohio. He came from Ohio State. He was a hometown kid. To play your whole career with that kind of team, bring them to a Super Bowl. That stuff transcends the stat sheet. It goes beyond the tape. It goes beyond all of that. So, for him to play his whole career in one spot, and a spot that meant so much to him and meaning so much to everyone else in Cincinnati and the fans, it's not a storybook ending because he never got the ring. But
right.
I mean, think of how many people are that lucky, to play at a spot where they love and means so much to that community. To me, it's one of the good feel-good stories of the sport. So it's cool to see. It's sad to see that he's walking away, but at least he's walking away on his own terms, and now he's got a whole lot of time to focus on family, other pursuits, things like that.
Yeah, and he ended it on a touchdown. His last play in the NFL was a touchdown, so that was awesome. Do I sound okay? Somebody said I sounded underwater.
A little earlier, it was cutting in and out, but I think you're good now. I'll give you an update if it gets back to it.
All right. Just let me know because, like I said, this has been a great start to the show so far. Too much technical difficulty. All right, so you are a draft expert, so let's put it this way.
And I do want to make a note real quick. My job was different for the past 5 months. So I've really had to get back into it this past week. So you mentioned did I fire off info just like that? I apologize if I last year, I remember I did all the work. I had nuggets on guys in late day three. I might not be quite as fresh as I was this last year, but I'm happy to be back. Happy to be on the show.
Absolutely. I'm glad you're back at it. Like I said, I enjoy having you on the show. So let's go with 17 with the Bengals. Some people say Nolan. Some people say I think it's Grant. I always mess his name up. The kid out of Michigan. Yeah. Where in your research here, where are you thinking those guys might land? Has their stock went up since the combine where they might not be there? We might have to pivot to a guard or somebody else in the draft there at 17. But what's your thoughts on 17 in general?
I think I don't remember if Grant tested. I don't think he blew
it.
He
didn't. Neither one of them tested, to be honest.
Yeah. So that if anything, their stock would go down just a little bit because you see risers all the time in the NFL combine. But at the same time, too, I think NFL evaluators and NFL scouting, they're generally a little less elastic than the media is, right? Like the media is always like, oh, this guy's moving up, this guy's moving down. NFL teams have had like GPS data on these guys, like their max acceleration, like they go in depth, right? So the NFL Combine is not make or break for many of these guys. They have a lot of info, behind the scenes. If anything did happen, I would say maybe Kenneth Grant sliding a little bit just because guys are going up, and he's a unique one because he's a nose tackle, right? Mm-hmm. Like he's going to be your fulcrum. So odd front schemes, all that stuff. Walter Nolan is an interesting one. Had he been able to test, had he tested, I think he would have blown the roof off.
I wish he would have.
I know he's explosive, man. He's, 5-star recruit. Like he's got the goods, and he's pretty long for his size too. I mean, the power profile is definitely there. So I think overall, probably staying relatively neutral. I think if you want Walter Nolan at 17, you can probably get him. Coming into the preseason, that was a little high for me. He's definitely worked his way into round 1 range. Now for the Bengals, it's just a matter of, is the valuation the right thing? Because obviously with Al Golden, you're going to be looking for guys that are, more capable of rushing with a 4-man front, instead of odd front, like guys who can generate pressure with that. So Walter Nolan fits that scheme pretty well. It's just a matter of, is the value right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. It's like one thing I still haven't really been. All I've heard is there's character issues. I mean, Natty Ron here says I don't want no player with character issues, and that's one thing we kind of heard, but really haven't heard what they are. And doesn't seem like it's hurting his draft stock very much. If he goes and kills it at his pro day, he might move up. But he might not be there at 17.
Yeah, and here's the thing with character issues, they can be really tough to pin down. And I'm not an insider. I don't have any scoop that other people don't have. I know character can be very wide-ranging. It can involve an incident off the field, like an actual incident that you can point to. But then with some guys, it's work ethic, preparation, things like that, things that might prevent them from reaching their ceiling or might cause them to fizzle out down the line in their NFL career. We've seen, all the outcomes at this point. So it's tough to pin down. If you're looking at it from the outside, you don't put too much stock. You put a little bit of stock into it. You have awareness of it. But beyond that, making a note of it, it's really tough to pin down from the outside.
Right, exactly. Now, Natty Ron also know another one here. Should we really be worried about this defense? Like right now, yeah, I would be worried about the Bengals defense because we don't have a whole lot. But with this, with free agency coming up, and I think we're going to know a lot more next week, and with the contracts of T and Jamar. Actually, let's get into T and Jamar here real quick.
Yeah,
let's go that way. So they tagged T, and I'm not going to take credit for this. James Rapine said this on Locked On Bengals. And I never thought about this, and I'll get your opinion on it, that people think that T would be upset and his agent would be upset that they tagged him. The way James put it is the agent was forcing the Bengals to tag him, so that money is locked in. He's getting at least that. That's like the floor. So that to me it makes more sense as to why, if they are going to do a long-term contract, which sounds like they are. All right, we're starting here. This is you're already paying us this. No matter what happens, you're going to pay me, my client, this. That gives them more of a starting point. Does that sound about right to you?
From my experience with franchise tags, that is generally what it starts. Now, obviously, if you have a long-term deal, the average annual value might not quite reach the franchise tag, or they might be able to spread it out. They might be able to get some in bulk with guarantees, things like that. From my understanding, what I've traditionally looked at it as, it is a starting point, right? It means that something is locked in. Now, obviously, especially T, just tweeting the word tag, there's a little bit of discontent about not being locked down long term, or not immediately getting that deal that you want. It does show that they at least want to maintain a discourse, right? And you don't see too many tag and trades nowadays. I know a lot of people talk about them, but usually what ends up happening is, they'll either play on the tag, they'll get a long-term deal. I think those are the two most likely outcomes. For the Bengals in particular, it's difficult because you want to re-sign Chase. There's no ifs or buts about it. That's not ambiguous at all. You can't let him walk out the door. So then something's got to give. Especially with a front office that's been, I think, relative to others, a little stingy with their money, right? Like they're not. Right. And Trey Hendrickson might be the odd man out, right? But do you want to put so much money in that receiving core? Especially with T, he's getting a little older. He's not at the cliff yet, but you worry at the tail end of a long-term deal. If you put too much money into him, maybe something happens. But ultimately, the way that he played, especially when he was healthy last year, like this guy, I think the Bengals have a really special thing. I think they have potentially 2 top 10 receivers in the league. I mean, that's not something you want to give up, especially with Joe Burrow. That's the engine of your offense. So if it were me and I was making that decision, it's tough to obliterate the edge position, if you do let Trey walk, but that's a special receiver duo. So it's a starting point. Can they get a deal done? That's the next step.
Yeah. The thing is, people have this conversation as you can't sign 2 top 10 or top 5 wide receivers. And if Joe Burrow's Jackpot Joe is so good, why does he need these guys? And to me, it's like I've kind of argued with people on Twitter. It's like we've already let talented players walk out the building. The offensive side of the ball, there's nothing. I mean, I like to get the run game a little bit better, but the offense, other than that, the offensive side of the ball and the offensive line. But for the most part, the offensive side of the ball is fine. It ain't broke. Don't fix it. So we got to fix too much of the defense. Keep the players you have. And I'm curious. I'm hoping they at least get T signed before Monday, because Monday's beginning of free agency, if I'm correct. So
yeah, it's coming up here. Yeah.
So hopefully they get him signed then, so they at least have that money. All right, that money's gone. We know what that is, and you still have Chase sitting out there. Which another thing that James Rapine brought up, I'll bring this up again. Justin Jefferson, he didn't get signed his big deal with Minnesota until June. So I mean, just because Jamar hasn't signed now, and I know we've been working, but I mean, Justin Jefferson, they waited till almost the last possible minute to sign him as well. Before, I mean, June, right before training camp started, the Minnesota Vikings signed him. That's what could happen again here. I mean, I praying to God it doesn't go into training camp. We cannot have it do that. But as long as it's done by June, I think we're good. I think it'll be fine. It just can't go into training camp. And I wouldn't be surprised if it does go. I mean, hopefully they come out, this weekend and back-to-back days they say they're both signed and we can just move on. Now, you mentioned Trey Henderson with the contract that Max Crosby just signed, which was freaking
it's a lot of money.
Right. That's a lot of money. I mean, and people are like, well, and this is what some people are like, well, see, the Raiders got their deal done. Like, okay, don't compare us to the Raiders. The Raiders suck, all right? they have a horribly run organization for years now. And look, I wanted Max Crosby. I was hoping the Bengals would trade him. I think he's a great player. If I were the Raiders, they made him the highest non-paid quarterback in NFL history for a defensive tackle, which is great for Max. But what sense does that make for the Raiders? And I'm like, well, that's there goes Trey. I'm like, well, yeah, kind of. I don't know if there goes Trey, but it doesn't help any.
No.
And that's where I kind of fight back. Where like, well, the Raiders did it. Well, yeah, they overpaid for him. I think. I don't think they had to pay Max that much money.
Well, I think that's just how the market goes. If you have a blue chip guy, he's going to drive the market up because they're looking at the rates like, hey, I want to get paid comparable to, who else is up here. And Max Crosby, to his credit, one of the best edge rushers in the league. And I think the Raiders defense doesn't work without him, right? Malcolm Kuntz kind of broke out this year, became a really good number 2. They drafted Tyree Wilson in round 1, and he hasn't quite panned out to the degree they wanted. But Max Crosby, he is the guy that defense is built around, right? So when you get to the conversation with like Trey Hendrickson, I think the Raiders as a team, you mentioned they're bad. They have been bad for a long time.
Wow.
But I also think kind of a byproduct of that is that they are in a better position to, dish out a deal like that to a guy like Max Crosby. With the Bengals, you have a little bit more cap tied up, and you have future cap tied up as well, because you have to re-sign Jamar Chase. That you really want to re-sign Tee Higgins. So then, there's only so much to go around. I know the Saints are notorious for everyone says like, oh, the cap it's a magical number.
The cap doesn't exist to the Saints.
It doesn't exist, right?
Exactly.
I think it does exist to a degree.
Right.
And I think the Bengals are learning that through this situation. So, it's really, frustrating because the Bengals, you want to keep the Super Bowl window open. They didn't get a ring this first time around. And the roster, I think there's some, kind of the remains a little bit is still there, So you got to figure out how to distribute that, how to work around that. And something's got to give. I think they're not quite in the same position the Raiders are when it comes to giving a deal like that to an edge like that. And that does just make it harder.
Well, that and Crosby's also younger, and I mean, look, Trey. Yeah, it's hard to say that. I think Max is a better player than Trey when Trey led the league in sacks.
I think he is. I think he is more raw talent is there.
Yeah, he
sure.
can do more things. Trey is just a pass rusher, so which is not any shade on Trey. It's just that's what he is. He's damn good at it, and I think the Bengals will sign him. But for me, my perspective, I think Trey wants to be here, and I don't. I mean, yeah, if he's not, and the thing is, he can't hit the open market. I mean, he's under contract, so he's not going to get what Max got. I mean, it's not going to happen because he doesn't have the leverage to get. I mean, honestly, the Bengals don't have to do anything. They can just say, "Hey, this is your last year contract. You got to play it out." That's what they could do. I don't think they're going to do that. So that's where people put out there like, "Well, that Trey's money just went up." I was like, "Well, yeah, Trey wants to get there, and his agent is going to try and get there." But I don't think he gets there. Not with the Bengals anyway. And then if you go through another season, he'll be say he plays out this year, he'll be 31 at the end of the year. He's not touching. Even if he had a productive season again, I don't think he's touching Crosby's money. I just that's just my opinion. I don't think that affects Max's contract affects Trey as much as some people have put it out there.
I think it affects the scalable money. Right?
Yeah.
Like no one, he's not going to get paid more than Crosby. But when Crosby raises the ceiling this much, that might raise a Trey Hendrickson contract by this much, right? So it's like it's all proportional. It's all relative, and the relative money goes up whenever the ceiling goes up. Kind of like the salary cap. Whenever the salary cap goes up, you have more to work with. And I think that's the effect that it has. But you're absolutely right. What do you give to a guy who is reaching that point where long-term contract at that kind of volume could come back to bite you once he gets 33, 34, right? So it's difficult, but especially nowadays, teams that need to win now, a bona fide pass rushing stud like that can really pay it back.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not one that says we should trade Trey and get more draft picks because, well, I hate to say it, but the Bengals' history hasn't been that great of drafting here lately, which I hopefully, knock on wood, we knock it out the park this year because we only got 6 picks. All right, let's get back into the draft here. So at 17, we talked about Nolan.
Yeah.
And the draft work that you've done so far, who do you have in your draft at 17 that the Bengals could get potentially defensive line or offensive line?
Yeah, defensive line. I would go definitely if we're looking at edge. I think Mykel Williams is a potential option who could be there. Shamar Stewart was an option before the combine. I don't think he gets there now. He's just too talented, which is weird because
his stock went whoop.
Yeah, if you want to talk about a guy whose stock just went through the roof, that's the guy right there for sure. Yeah. But which Shamar Stewart, yeah, he's an athletic freak. I mean, he makes 280 on tape. I think he weighed in a little bit lighter at the NFL Combine, which is. Guys always weigh in at least 5 to 10 pounds lighter than their playing weight. It's just, that 40 times what people look at, right? So, you got to try and juice it a little bit. But even when he's playing closer to 280, he makes it look like 240. It's insane how mobile he is. And there are some reps on tape where, his pass rush is a little disjointed. His lower body and upper body aren't always in sync. I think his pass rush plan can be a lot more consistent. And that's what brings me to Mykel Williams. Honestly, I think Mykel Williams is a little bit more of a known quantity as a pass rusher right now. He's still got work to do too. I think he can still expand his pass rush plan. But when you want to talk about a guy whose hips are always aligned where they need to go, like on stunts and looping rushes like that, Mykel Williams is one of my favorite rushers in that lens. And then he's a really good run defender too because he's explosive. He's strong at the point. He's powerful. So if you want run defense on the edge, Mykel Williams will get you there. And then he can also, expand your possibilities with stunting. The biggest thing is just rushing one-on-one. Can you get the hand usage there? I think it could come in time, but I also know the Bengals have taken swings on guys like that very recently with Myles Murphy, and it hasn't panned out to this point. So, there is some trepidation that comes with that. But I like Mykel Williams. He's a very good player. Nick Scorton from Texas A&M is another one at the edge position who's kind of in that same lens. Where he's super powerful. I think he's a little bit more lateral finesse to go with it. He can win on spin moves. He's got more of a hand usage arsenal, double swipes, cross chops, things like that.
Is he the one that somebody compared him to Micah Parsons? Is that who?
If they did compare him to Micah Parsons, I don't agree with it personally.
I heard that from I don't remember where. Maybe I just dreamed it, but I heard it from somebody about the Texas A&M guys.
Yeah, I think if there's any guy to compare to Parsons, which is ironic because he's a Penn State too, it's probably Abdul Carter at the top of the board. If I would, but I think for Nick Gordon, a comp that I had early on, like a really high on comp, was maybe DeMarcus Lawrence. A guy who's got really powerful hands. He's got enough finesse and more than enough finesse and burst for his frame. But then he's just the guy who's always going to win those hand battles because he's generating that force. He could be an option there, maybe a little high, but I like him a lot. At the defensive tackle position, though, a couple guys that stand out to me, especially, again, we talk about Al Golden, right? His Notre Dame defense, they played a lot of man coverage. They could skew more to zone with the Bengals. We'll see how they fit that personnel, because one thing Golden emphasized in his press conference is that, I'm going to morph it to my guys. But, generally at Notre Dame, a lot of man coverage, getting right in the grill of the offense, and then playing 4-man fronts, right? Guys who can rush just straight downhill. Derek Harmon from Oregon is a guy who makes a lot of sense within that mold, around 6'5", 320, 34-inch arms. I think over 34-inch arms. Dude is insanely powerful, rushing in a straight line. A little high-hipped, a little high-jointed when it comes to that, and that's where your transitions are a little iffy, right? You wonder about the pass rush plan when he has to use lateral counters, but at the same time, too, having a guy with that kind of, the term I like to use is a forklift profile. Like, he can get underneath you and he can just forklift guys out of the way. He can just plow those lanes open. So a really fun player. And then another one that I like a lot. He's kind of fallen a little bit down the board, it looks like, through consensus, but he's still a top 20 guy for me. Is Tyleik Williams at Ohio State. Okay. I love this dude. 6'3". I think he was playing as heavy as 320 at Ohio State. He's got the profile that makes you think he'd be a nose tackle, but he was taking reps at 3-tech, 4-eye, 5-tech, even in run defense reps. He can execute stunts and loops, and he's got insane burst and bend for his size. So Tyleik Williams, to me, if you're looking for a central interior defensive line presence, I still think he's got merit there for sure. And I think if you're the Bengals, you can also play the board. If the board is falling away you like, you can trade back a little bit. I think defensive line, those are a few guys that stand out.
All right. Speaking of Ohio State, the guy I got a man crush on is JTT.
Yeah.
Where do you have him at right now?
He'd probably be a second rounder, top 50, top 64. I need to get a concrete.
Bengals at 49, baby. Let's go.
Yes, sir. That's what I'm saying. But hey,
yeah.
I mean, if you're looking at a even front 4-3 mainly scheme, 4-3, 4-2-5, I think JTT would be a great fit there. He's a guy who plays best with his hand in the dirt, so he'd be able to do that. Again, the strength of the point of attack. This is a guy who's built for that, built for those trench battles. I've always loved the driving power that he has. He's got a nose for the football as well, which, having that disruptive flair at the edge position, makes it that much better. You're never going to get elite bend from him, elite finesse, and that's kind of a player archetype thing. Like, it's right. Something that he can't really counteract, but the dude is powerful. He's explosive. Linear explosion is definitely there. And I think this past year he did kind of improve as a pass rusher. That was the biggest thing, is kind of waiting for it to click with the pass rush plan. And I was impressed with some of what I saw. So he's trending up. He's got the right trajectory. He's got the right player fit for the scheme. I think round 2 is probably the money spot for him because, again, the bend can be an issue. There are times where he can't really roll his hips underneath the apex. But for the Cincinnati Bengals and for this new look scheme that they want to kind of implement, I think JTT makes a lot of sense. And you keep him in Ohio, which is a bonus.
Exactly. See, look at you. You're saying you're not going to be that good. You're just rattle them off.
No, believe me, man. I really want – have me back on in a month, and I'll be talking way too much.
You trust me. You know me. I'll get you back. Like I said, we got almost 2 months of draft to talk. So
yes, sir.
We got a lot more shows to do here. Jack Sawyer, where you at on him?
He's one that I need to refresh on his 2024 tape a little bit more. Coming into the year, he was a guy who was probably a little lower on my board, probably like mid to late round. I know he had some hype with his recruitment billing. I know he turned it on down the stretch though a little bit. I know, particularly in the playoffs. So I got to go back and watch the tape 2024. But he was a player who struck me as always looking the part, right? He's got the frame, he's got enough length. He's got enough explosiveness, not elite bend, but just a little enough of everything. Hot motor guy, tough competitor. But he hadn't put it together as a prospect entering the year. So I need to go back and watch the playoff tape. But what was your perspective? Just Ohio, seeing him on TV a lot.
I like him. I'm not. If it's either him or JTT at 49, I'm taking JTT.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's the thing too. Like when I was first watching them, just the first thing that you notice when you're watching tape is always traits, right?
Yeah.
Size, length, explosion, agility, ease of motion. JTT, even with his bigger size, looked like the more athletic player to me. Explosive,
he's just quick off the ball.
Yeah,
too.
exactly. So I think, yeah. And that's the thing. Like when the ceiling is lower with a guy like Sawyer, which it's not like in the basement, right? It's probably he's above average as an athlete.
Oh
right?
yeah, he definitely.
But,
I mean, honestly, if people compared it, and I don't think this is a bad comparison. Yeah. Sam Hubbard, who just retired.
For sure. But that's the thing. Like if he's an above average athlete, the margin for error with execution, with, other things, with anchor placement and run defense, like all of that stuff, the margin for error is so much slimmer when you don't have an elite athlete. That's why you see NFL teams breaking the bank and trading up for guys like, Shamar Stewart or Michael Williams, is because we can invest in this. Right. And I think Jack Sawyer will be a great rotational lineman from what I've seen. Again, I need to refresh on the tape, but my initial impression with the traits is that above average, right? But not a guy that's going to be a central player for your defense, and probably not a guy that you want to reach on. Probably a guy who's probably best as depth rotation on day 3.
Yeah, Bengals, we only got 6 picks. We can't reach on anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where I can't wait till next week, which I'm hoping we're out the bat like we did a couple years ago when we signed Ted Karras, Alex Kappa. We're like the first ones to announce. I hope we announce 2 guards that we sign. But with that being said, that's kind of the direction I think the Bengals are going to go, and I think it's going to be more defensive side of the ball in the draft. But if they don't, at 17 or at 49 here, or down the line, offensive guard play, just basic guards. Where are you at? Can we get one that could be a plug and play either at 17 or 49? And can we get like depth guys down in the 5th, 6th round?
Depth guys, again, I'll hold out final judgment until my appearance down the line with the sleepers in the class. There's always guys that intrigue within that lens, and I think that this class does have a lot of guys who could project inside. That's the thing with guards. You never want to be married to, I'm going to look at the guys who played offensive guard in college, right? Because there are a lot of tackle prospects.
Some tackles are going to move into guard. So yeah,
exactly. So it's like you never want to get married to one thing. I will say, round 1, I think we'll address all the possibilities here.
Go ahead. Go for it.
If a guy
like an hour, you can talk.
Exactly. If a guy like Kelvin Banks Jr. was to fall to 17, which some mock drafts have actually had him falling lately, so that's something to keep in mind. And
why is he falling?
I'm not sure. Maybe it's because he tested pretty well. Character reports from everything that I've seen have come back good. So I think maybe it's because he's a little high hipped, a little stiff on transitions, something like that. And he's
he doesn't have short arms, does he?
I don't think he has short arms. No, I think he's over 33. I think he's close to 34. Which the NFL Combine was weird actually, because I don't think Kelvin Banks went to an All-Star game or anything, but some of the guys who measured at All-Star games came in with like 34 inches at the All-Star game, and then they come in at like 33 at the NFL Combine.
So his tape measure was wrong.
It was like a full inch off. I'm like, are you
where'd the rest of my arm go?
Exactly. It's like, I don't know, like where is the discrepancy here, the disconnect? So that was interesting. But no, Kelvin Banks doesn't have any length issues. I think for him, it's just there's always a little bit of stiffness with his relatively high cut frame. But that said, I think he's powerful. He's really strong at the point of attack. He's got good knee bend for his size. The athleticism isn't a concern. And I think he showed some technical improvement in 2024. So if he's there at 17, if I were the Bengals, I would consider taking him and moving him inside to guard. I think he translates really well at guard because, again, the limitations that you see at tackle, non-elite hip flexibility and transition freedom, those are things that you can mitigate a little bit in a phone booth, and you can play up to his strengths, which is physicality, strength, power, things like that. Really low center of gravity for his size too. And then in round 2, a tackle who could translate really well to guard is, I think, Jonah Savaiinaea from Arizona. He actually played guard in his first year at Arizona. He was a starter right out of the gate. Started, I think, 12 or 13 games at, I want to say, left guard. And then he transitioned over to right tackle the next year. And he's another guy. My comp for him early on was Matthew Bergeron, who played
Oh.
tackle at Syracuse.
Yeah.
And then he went to the Atlanta Falcons, and they switched him over to guard. And he's been pretty good so far. I think this year was a little up and down, but the talent is there. Really energized mover at his size, being around 6'5", 320, 330. He carries his mass really well. Like, there's not a lot of bad weight there. Really efficient mover, explosive in space. He's got that mauler mentality. Well, he'll bury some defenders on the boundary.
We need guys like that. We need maulers.
Exactly.
We need some gangsters. What we need.
Exactly, and I think Savaiinaia fits that really well. So I'm going down my list here because I want to make sure I don't forget any names. That's the thing. When you're like me, you talk on autopilot sometimes. Well, I try to study and prepare so that I can talk. I can just talk about it and just rattle it off. But when there's so much information and you're bouncing around in your brain,
I don't, like I said, when you've been on multiple times, I don't know how you remember all this stuff, even if you do study it all the time, because I talk about this stuff every day and I forget. I'll start talking about somebody and I just forget their damn name. I'm going, like, who am I talking about?
Exactly. So I got to make sure I have all the names in there, man.
Yeah,
but so I'm going to traditional guards now. Tyler Booker could be an option if he's there at 17. I don't know if he'll last there. That's a polarizing one because the evaluation on the tape is very good. I mean, this is a guy who, when I watched him preseason, I really realized like he's a young player. For such a young player, he already has such a good feel for leverage, for timing. His footwork is sublime. I mean, he's so balanced for his size, but the athleticism, I thought he had good functional athleticism on tape. I think he's a little bit better athlete functionally than his numbers would insinuate. But being as big as he is, he'll probably play close to 330. He is naturally just a guy who's probably more effective in a phone booth, right? Mm-hmm. So I think with him, the athletic limitations, is that going to be enough to drop him to 17? If it is, I would take that in a heartbeat. I think he's a phenomenal player. I think he's a really stable player, a steady player, someone you're not going to hear a lot about, which on the offensive line is a good thing. In pass protection, he's got more than enough lateral mobility to match stunts and things like that. So I really like Tyler Booker. I know the combine numbers, some people might have overreacted to that. It's not something that concerns me too much. So I would take him at 17. A couple more guys that are pretty.
Quick question, real quick. Not to catch you off, but are any of these guys, if they were to drop to 17, that you would take them over one of the defensive guys, being that the Bengals need defense? I won't say more. We need two guards, but are any of those guys, if they drop, they're like, you can't pass this guy up to 17. You got to take him.
I wouldn't say any of them can't pass up. Okay. There is one I know for I don't know for a fact. No one knows for a fact, but I know pretty as well as anyone can that Armand Mambu from Missouri is probably not going to make it to 17. If he did, that's one that you run up the card for. Armand Mambu. I got to practice that.
Armand Mambu. Gotcha.
Armand Mambu from Missouri. He will probably be my offensive lineman one. Ahead of the season, he was not on many people's radar, but he had a phenomenal year, and then he tested out of this world with the NFL Combine. If he was to be there at 17, he nullifies all other options. He's not going to be there. If he was, he would. Kelvin Banks Jr., Tyler Booker, those guys are good, but they're not quite at the level. I would still have a nuanced discussion about, all right, we've got Banks on the board, we got Booker, we got Harmon, we've got Michael Williams, we've got Nick Scorton. All right, let's measure them against each other and see which one makes the most sense. So
for the players that you think will be there at 17, the higher level of skill is on the defensive side of the ball, most likely, right?
I would say
that'll probably be there.
For the most part, yeah. I think, there's a few guys here too, like a couple more that I wanted to mention. Gray Zabel from North Dakota State. I know North Dakota State products, Cincinnati probably not too keen after Cordell Volson hasn't really panned out. I do think Gray Zabel is a better prospect, pretty much by a pretty sizable margin. I think, one thing with scouting, you never want to scout the helmet, right? It is something, it's a cosmetic similarity. So we're human beings. We're bound to notice that. And it's
we can't take over that school. Look what happened last time we did. Yeah, exactly.
But no, Gray Zabel is a guy that I like a lot. He's an energized mover, again, for his size, really athletic, but I think he has the strength at the point. He can actually measure up to NFL strength, like the way that Volson couldn't quite do. And I think that Zabel has the flexibility, the leverage acquisition that I want. He played tackle at NDSU, but he'll probably project inside, right? So you can put him at guard. And he's a mauler, man. He's so physical. Probably one of the most physical linemen in the class. He's always looking to impose his will. And then Donovan Jackson from Ohio State. I know he was a one who played guard initially, but then Josh Simmons went down and he shifted to left tackle, and I thought had some really good left tackle tape, man. I was watching their game against Texas today, and he's got really clean pass sets. He's very balanced, matching rushers back. But then as a guard, he's got the low center of gravity. He's got the proportional length. I think he has everything that you need to be a rock solid starter at either spot, right? For the Bengals, that would obviously be inside. Does he make it to 49 if you're holding out hope to get him in the second round? I don't think so, personally. I think Donovan Jackson goes, if not late round 1, early round 2. But those are some guys in that range that could be options. I think for the Bengals, I think the ideal scenario is if you're dead set on getting an edge rusher or defensive tackle round 1, Tate Ratledge from Georgia. If he's there at 49, that would be a phenomenal pick because first off, the mullet is amazing.
It's elite. I've seen it.
It's elite for sure. But Tate Ratledge is another prospect who's really experienced. He's got great feel for the game, great instincts, really physical again. And then for his size, being 6'6", he's very flexible. So the leverage acquisition, again, is very easy for him. And I think he hit the ground running. I think he put him in as a plug and play guy. He's got all the traits needed. He's not as flashy as Calvin Banks or Armand Membu, but he is a guy who, you can just put him in and forget about it, right? So if he's there at 49, I think the ideal scenario would definitely be, like a Michael Williams and a Tate Ratledge or a Derek Harmon and a Tate Ratledge, right? But you never know how the board is going to play out. So it's just the options are there.
Exactly. Now, do you know who Tyler Stevenson is, the catcher for Cincinnati Reds? You know who that guy is?
I do not know.
Okay, well, he's our starting catcher, and I guess you need to go look at it. It might be your doppelganger because all here says you look like Tyler Stevenson. So
it's actually interesting. I have a twin brother too, so
okay,
we might have a triplets thing going.
Triplets. There you go.
I gotta ask my parents about something. No,
need to go do a side by side of you guys. All right, so if the Bengals do, which I think their plan is to re-sign Mike Gesicki.
Yeah.
They still, with the injury to Eric All and just our tight end room in general is not very deep. I think tight end is definitely on the board for Cincinnati. Now, if the kid, which this ain't going to happen, but the kid for Penn State, which I can't remember his name,
Tyler Warren.
Tyler Warren, thank you. Yeah. If he's there, I would take him.
Oh yeah,
he's not going to be at 17. But I think more. Again, I think the first two are going to be trenches. He's going to be defensive line or offensive side. I just think that's what it's going to be. When you get to the third, fourth round, that's when it could be a tight end or a safety or something like that. Where what's you're in your general tight end room there. Where do you have guys ranked that the Bengals could possibly pick? I know you haven't got too far down the line. So
yeah, I've gotten far enough to get like day 2 guys. I think again, which by the way, Tyler Warren, if he was there at 17 by some measure of the imagination, he's another one where I would probably run up the card. I think him and Armand Membu, which is weird because Tyler Warren too, coming into the year, he was probably more of a day 2 guy, but he really just kind of revitalized his stock. He had over 100 catches. He's so clutch, so reliable, and I think he'd be a phenomenal player for them. But if they were to pass, if they were to go trenches, round 1, round 2, a few guys that stand out to me, my favorite in this range is probably Terrence Ferguson from Oregon. He tested really well at the NFL Combine. He's been kind of in the consensus seems to have him in like a late day 2, early day 3. He would be closer to a top 64 player for me. I was a big fan of him coming into the year, and he played well again. I think he's just a really complete tight end, man. He's a great blocker. He's a really good route runner, great feel. He's not super, he's very smooth on hip transitions, right? If you need him to do a quick double move, he can do it. In breakers, very seamless, very smooth. And then he's got pretty good hands at the catch point. Not as elite of the rack threat as you get with Tyler Warren, right? Or not as elite of a receiving X factor as Colson Loveland per se. But I do think if you're looking for a guy who's just solid across the board, I think that Terrence Ferguson is definitely that level of player. Gunnar Helm is another one. I think you get more rack with him. The NFL Combine testing, people are going to put that under the spotlight, but he did sprain his ankle on the false start there. So
right.
I think that probably affected him throughout the entire thing. So again,
yeah,
just a little bit.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Try running a 40 on a sprained ankle.
I tried walking on a sprained ankle.
I tried walking on a regular ankle and I'm
Oh.
still not getting everywhere.
Yes, exactly.
But I think that he's a solid player. I think he's another one who's got strong hands, good rack threat. I think Ferguson might be the better blocker from what I remember. Again, I'll have to do a final eval on these guys, but they're solid. Elijah Arroyo from Miami is another one. That's the dynamic receiver of the group. That's the guy who's the bona fide athlete. You get him in that room, you're giving Joe Burrow a safety blanket that you can work with in the middle of the field.
He's more like Gesicki, more of a more receiver than a blocking tight end.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the problem. If you do re-sign Gesicki, you probably want someone who complements him rather than is redundant with that skill set. So I think that's kind of where that factors into play. Which brings me to another guy who could very well be available on day 3. I think he will be, and he could be a decent value because when he was healthy, when he was at his best in college, he was really good. It's Luke Lachey from Iowa. Getting those Iowa tight ends. You can never go wrong with those. Lachey, again, when he was healthy, I think health is going to be the big thing for him because he did have the season-ending injury. But
I don't know. I'm not sure how. Once again, we already had a tight end from Iowa that had the back injury. But
it's definitely that's the point where the association bias becomes real a little bit. Yeah,
right.
Exactly. So I get that for sure. And I think with him, it's a matter of, are you willing to take the risk? If you are, he's a good seam threat. He's a great blocker, as Iowa tight ends tend to be. And I think for a day 3 pick, if he falls far enough, let's say he falls to like round 5, round 6, maybe it's worth it because you're not losing too much in the long run. It's for a lesser cost. And then one more that I'll throw out there. He caught my eye. I need to do an in-depth evaluation on him, but he caught my eye a couple of years ago, I think, when he was at Arizona State. And then I think he transferred to Texas Tech. Jalen Conyers, he tested really well at the NFL Combine. Explosive athlete. Again, kind of like some of these guys, he's just built different. You can tell that he didn't have to. Obviously he worked behind the scenes, but he didn't have to work for a ton of his mass. He's just a really big dude, just naturally very explosive, nimble mover. I do think there's a lot of upside in both phases there. So Jalen Conyers is another I threw out there.
Yeah, exactly. Now this has got some stuff. Comments here. KP from KC, he said the Raiders 2 years, $11 million. That's for Kappa. Like, holy crap! I can't believe they. Again, like I said, he said they're blowing their money fast. That's where I'm like, I don't want to compare myself to the Raiders, to be honest. The way they're doing stuff. But T Brookie here has got one. Mason Taylor, will he last to the second round?
My gut feeling is he will. Now, all it takes is one team to like him, and he's gone. Like Sam Laporta, a couple cycles back, like he went like in the 30s, like right after the round 1 boundary, and some people were mocking him in round 3 and stuff like that. So once you get past round 1, the boards kind of flutter out a little bit.
Right.
You have a lot more variance in where teams are at, where they're willing to go, guys. I will say with Mason Taylor, he's got the NFL bloodlines. He's got the character. He's got the work ethic and all of those things. The blocking is pretty average right now, and I think that's where some teams might get hung up on him. But again, he's a natural hands catcher, really good at extending beyond his, not just extending beyond his frame, but making adjustments like to back shoulder balls, things like that. And then he's got some rack to him as well, some versatility as a receiver. So I do think the talent is there for him to go earlier than people expect, maybe in that 30s range. My gut feeling is he'll be there at 49. If I were the GM for all of those teams, he'd probably be there at 49 for me. Might be more of a top 64, top 75 guy. But I think there's a decent chance. And if you're the Bengals, man, first 2 rounds of, say, Derek Harmon, Tyleik Williams, Michael Williams, Nick Gordon, and then Mason Taylor in round 2, obviously you're putting off offensive guard a little bit at that point. But if Mason Taylor is there at 49, that's definitely something you need to consider. Now,
this is a trade that I know some Bengals fans, because this is a guy that I wanted, was Michael Mayer. He's a local kid. And the Chiefs just traded oh my God. See, this is what I do. I start talking about
Joe Thuney.
Joe Thuney, for a 6th round future pick, which I cannot believe they gave him away for a 6th round pick, but they're so up under the cap, they kind of had to. So if the Bengals were to trade a 2026, I mean, you might be able to get Michael Mayer for a 6th round. If you can get Thuney for a 6th round pick, why the hell can't you get Michael Mayer for a 6th round pick in 2026 or whatever? What's your thoughts on Michael Mayer? Because he hasn't really developed in Vegas. Do you still think will he be worth taking a chance on if we can get for a 6th or 7th round pick, a future pick?
Yeah, I think you got to do your due diligence on the evaluation and all those things, and what's happened since the end of the NFL. But when he was a prospect, he was a top 50 guy for me.
Yeah,
Like,
he's number one tight end on most boards.
He was my number 2 just by a hair to Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah, yep.
But he was right there. Michael Mayer was a really solid player. He not quite an elite athlete in terms of mobility and flexibility, but a very, very good athlete who has enough talent to be a starting tight end. Really like the hands again, really good hand technique at the point. That was probably one of the biggest selling points, is that he was very consistent as a catcher. He did give effort as a blocker. I think the leverage can improve a little bit, but again, a guy who would give effort. So if you can get him for a future 6th, a future 7th, I think that's definitely something to take into account and consider. Obviously, things haven't panned out for him at Las Vegas, and you can chalk part of that up to competing for snaps with Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers tends to be a pretty good player, but at the same time, you do have to look at why it's panned out the way it has, and that's the Bengals have the resources to make those kinds of inferences, to dive in a little bit deeper from pure talent and evaluation standpoint. I think if you can get Michael Mayer for a future 6th, again, you don't want to hinge your hopes on him becoming the guy once you get him for that. But I think it does alleviate some of the tight end pressure in the draft. And if they did go into the season with Gesicki, Mayer, and then the young tight ends they already have, that might dissuade them from taking tight ends, and they can focus on the trenches and cornerback potentially if they want to add a need there. So it all kind of factors into the puzzle and gives you more flexibility.
Yeah, I mean, the more we're sitting here talking about, I would do that because I want to focus more on trenches, and then we got. I think we need to add a running back too, potential safety. I'm throwing that out there too because we're not totally sure if the Bengals are going to keep Geno Stone or not. Like, you go week to week, they're going to keep him. Then the next week, no, I think we're going to cut him. It just depends on what's going on there on how Al Golden wants to use them. But with that being said, now that's the other thing is the Xavier Worthy, the safety. Am I saying his name right? The safety.
Xavier Watts.
What? The one for Notre Dame?
Yeah.
Okay, Xavier Watts. Sorry, I don't know why Xavier Worthy one. Xavier Watts. I think Al Golden will be standing on the table if he's somewhere around 49 for the Bengals to go out and get him. What's your evaluation on him?
Yeah, and I think if you can get him playing that Geno Stone role that you envision Stone filling, I think Xavier Watts would be a really good fit for that. Because again, Xavier Watts, I think the biggest thing, if you were to put one thing in all caps, bold on a scouting report, ball hawk. He had 7 interceptions in 2023. He won the Buckus Award. And he's a guy who has enough size and competitiveness to play and support. Again, he's like 5'11", over 200 pounds, so he's got a strong frame. But I think the thing that really stands out is the instincts, the nose for the football, the ability, I'm talking way too much. I'm starting to get tongue-tied. The ability to be in the right spot at the right time and then make plays, generate turnovers, convert on opportunities. Xavier Watts is definitely that kind of guy on the back end where he'll be in the right spot. He'll make the job easier for other players in the secondary, and he will capitalize on opportunities when a QB, makes a risky pass. He's a guy who can break early. He can see that. He's got great processing when it comes to route concepts. And he's got enough athleticism to play in space too. A pretty smooth, fluid mover for his size. Sometimes with guys over 200 pounds, you worry that they're so rocked up, they're a little stiff on those transitions. Xavier Watts really isn't. He makes it look pretty easy. So you talk about Al Golden standing on a table for players. I definitely think, again, they're going to be doing that internal evaluation of all the players in the roster, see where the safety group is at. And I think if they do think that, it's already time to call it quits on the Geno Stone experiment, I think that Xavier Watts would be a pretty easy solution to succeed in that role.
And my boy Porchop here says that Watts is going to be a pick at 49. He's already putting it out there in the universe. So
he's manifesting it.
Yeah, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised to be honest. If he's there, it would not shock me for them to take him just because the relationship that Al Golden has to him. And let's be honest, since our safety room the last couple of years has not been good. I mean, Jordan Battle, I think has gotten better. I think he got screwed a little bit last year with his playing time, to be honest. And they finally started playing him toward the end, and the secondary got a little better. So that's why I would be surprised at that. Let's roll into cornerbacks because I I like the cornerback room a little bit more than most people do. I think Cam Taylor-Britt is going to have a bounce back year. I think Dax Hill is going to come back from his ACL. DJ Turner, same thing. I think they're all going to come back. And I think I look at it this way, Ian. We had that room was devastated with bad play. Like CTB played bad up until the end of the season started turning around. Then we had a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
Fig Newton, Josh Newton, I think had a very good year for a 6th round pick being thrown into it. So that bodes well. Hopefully he continues that moving forward. I'm not so sold that we're going to draft a cornerback. I can see us more signing one in free agency, a signing a veteran that way. Now, Mike Hilton sounds like he's not going to come back. But just in general, the cornerback room in the draft there, how good is it? And just around, I'm not going to say first round, but let's go 49 and beyond. Where you're at there? You can start with the top cornerbacks and going back.
Yeah, no, I think looking at the corner class, obviously, and kind of keeping it within the context of our conversation today, let's say we want to focus on the trenches early, right? I do think this corner class is really strong at the top. I think there is kind of a threshold at, say, the day 3 boundary where you start to get a little, which obviously this happens with draft classes, like the depth starts to peter out a little bit. I think for corner, it does a little bit quicker, but I also think there are a few sleepers on day 3 that I think could really be good fits. I think one that's really stood out to me when I've done mock drafts with the Cincinnati Bengals, Keaton Crawford from Nevada. I'm a big fan of him on day 3. If you can get him, again, I think, he's a guy who's got the short area quickness, the explosion, the speed, the competitive mentality. Again, if you're going to play more man coverage without Golden, but there's other players too that really factor in pretty well. Starting at the top, Jedi Barron from Texas. Again, I brought him up. I tweeted about him today. He's a player who, if you're going to play more man under Golden, he might need to adjust a little bit because he's mainly played a lot of zone, not a ton of press man experience, and he's got 29-inch arms too. So you wonder, if receivers can outreach him, they can win those hand battles. Will that affect his play? But Jedi Barron, if you need a guy, especially with Mike Hilton's long-term future being uncertain, if you want a corner who can play boundary and nickel, Jedi Barron really fits well under that lens. A couple more guys that stand out to me on that day 2 range. You might be able to get one of these guys at 49. I think Trey Amos from Ole Miss is a really fun player. I was watching him the other day, and he's around 6'1". He's got really good size and length, but he moves very well for his size.
Ole Miss has a lot of talented players. Yeah. I'm surprised how many guys are big, honestly big, but first or second round picks on that team. That was a very talented. I just keep hearing Ole Miss a lot.
Lane Kiffin did not skimp. He splurged when it came to NIL money. I mean, that's just the nature of the game. Ole Miss is a lot of NIL ammunition, and they really converted with it. Getting guys like Walter Nolan, he came from Texas A&M too. Princely Uman Milan came from Florida. So, a lot of guys coming from a lot of places. And I think Trey Amos was one. He started at Louisiana, then he transferred to Alabama. Then it didn't work out at Alabama, and then he went to Ole Miss and kind of got that second chance at thriving in SEC play, and he actually did. He played very well. And, he's a player, again, 6'1". He's got good size, but I love how natural he is in side saddle, vertical trailing out of man coverage. He's very twitchy, nimble, easy moving on his feet. He's got enough explosion and speed to win, and he's a very fun player. Azariah Thomas, I think is his name. I got to practice that one too. That's another thing. I'm really behind on names.
Hey, you do better than I do. I usually screw them all
up. Yeah, I gotta work on it, man. But Azariah Thomas out of Florida State is another fun one. He's got length, man. I think he's got over 32-inch arms. He's very, I think he gets really slept on in this class. There's not a lot of talk on him. He's pretty quiet when it comes to his name, but his tape is just very good. I think he's got the athleticism for his size. He's pretty fluid, very competitive in short spaces, but he's pretty instinctive in zone too. So there's some of that scheme flexibility that you want with Thomas from Florida State. And then there's a few more down the line that I like a lot, but those are the names that come to mind for the Bengals. That's if they take one day 2. If they don't, I think there are some guys like Keaton Crawford, like some other players. Quincy Riley from Louisville is another one. Guys who have the versatility, the physicality. Like Josh Newton was one player. He came out of college, not an elite athlete, but had some versatility, had some the physicality, the chip on his shoulder definitely was very marketable.
Yeah.
And he's ended up being pretty good. So I think those are the qualities that you're going to want to look for on day 3 to convert. And I think there are some players like that in this class.
Yeah, and he's got a cool nickname, Fig Newton. I mean,
exactly. Like Fig Newton. What's not to love?
Exactly. All right. Let's talk a little linebackers here. Because I do think, again, defense, I think defense is on the board, up and down. But Greg here says Oklahoma. Dan Studsman is a terrific linebacker. Had a green dot, led traffic's terrific on coverage. What do you think of him? And the linebacker drafted or class in general.
Yeah, the linebacker class is a little sparse at the top. I think the day 3 is probably the perfect range to get a linebacker. And I think if you're Cincinnati, you could potentially get a guy like Danny Stutzman and say, do they have a round 4 pick or no?
Yeah, they got 6
they
picks.
Do? Okay, so I think I wasn't sure which round they were lacking, but
the end. We only got 6.
I got you. Yeah, so I think Danny Stutzman, if you can get him there, insanely productive player. Like I go back to his stats sometimes and just look at them because he was so productive, with total tackles behind the line, one of the most active players that you'll see. And then at the NFL Combine, I think he ran in the 4.5s, which again, speed and range have never been concerns on tape. You see how productive he is, and it's definitely something that works well for him. I think if you get him, you're getting a player who is very rangy, who's very active, had the green dot, like the comment said, and that kind of shows up too. That Oklahoma defense, he was kind of the heart and soul. Like he was getting guys in position. He was really the first one to the ball, first one in the charge. I think for him, not quite as fluid as you would want in coverage sometimes, which is okay. He's a little taller, so naturally you're going to run into that sometimes. And I think there are some times where he'll be a little uncontrolled in pursuit, sometimes overrun his marks. But overall, I think he's athletic. He's got enough size. He's a leader. He's got a great motor as well. If you can get him around 4, you could be looking at a Sam or a Mike, a guy who's going to be a staple at the defense for a long time.
That's good. All right. Pork Chop here wants you to say the safety's name for South Carolina and how's he look at 17?
Yeah, Nick Amenwari. That's actually an interesting one because I did a mock draft for the Bengals. It was mock draft Monday. People were commenting on, I would do mock drafts for their team, and someone put Bengals. And the board fell in an interesting way where I considered him, and I ended up taking Nick Amenwari and tried to make it work. He is a unicorn as a talent. There's no other way to put it. I think he ran a 4.4. He had a 43-inch vertical. This is a dude who's like 6'3", almost 230 pounds. I mean, he looks like a linebacker at safety, and he's moving that way. It is absurd. He shouldn't be put together like that. It just doesn't compute. But at the same time, there is a tricky part with his evaluation because I look at the tape and, he can play off man, but sometimes he's a little late to the jump. His plant and drive footwork isn't super clean. He can play in too high, but sometimes his pedal isn't super smooth. He's not quite as fluid with his hips as, say, a Malachi Starks, right? I think Malachi Starks, looking at how he plays the back end, he makes everything look easy. He is so fluid out of his breaks. He can execute really quick hip transitions in rapid succession. He's got great sync. He's got great, drive and range. Nick Amenwari has the athleticism. I just think when you think about what safeties need to be able to do, they need to be able to pedal and weave in space. And Nick Amenwari isn't quite as efficient in that phase. I think with Amenwari, the best role for him is probably a hybrid slot, a big slot role where he can kind of explode downhill. He can be more reactive. He doesn't have to play space and manage space over top routes quite as much. But then he can use his size and his physicality to explode downhill. And once he does, he's very good in support. He can wrap up tackles. He can engage blocks. He can, enforce and make plays for a loss. So I think you have to find the right role for Nick Amenwari. And that's kind of where Al Golden comes into play. Does he fit the vision for the defense, right? Let's say Cam Taylor-Britt rebounds this next year. Let's say Dax Hill comes back from the ACL and ends up being a pretty good corner for them. You put Nick Amenwari in the slot and at strong safety, rotate him between strong safety and big nickel when they're facing tight ends or big slot wide receivers. I think that's a role where Nick Amenwari could be very valuable, but you have to find the right role for him.
That'd be interesting. That's interesting. All right. Last thing here, and I'll let you get out of here. Running backs. Now, like I said, I do think they're going to address this in the draft. My other man crush is people watch the show knows is Scattaboo. I freaking love that dude. I don't think we're going to get him because I don't think we're going to draft a running back till the 4th or 5th round. It's kind of where I think it's going to be at. But What do you think about Scatterboo and what's the running back class look like? We know Austin Jensen. We're not getting him. Yeah, we know that one.
Genty's he's another monster, man. Entirely. He's a fun player, but Scatterboo is he's also a fun player. I think the one thing, I love a running back who is versatile, and he is very versatile. You can use him in the receiving game.
I think he throw passes too.
Yeah, exactly, too. Which ideally you're not putting him in that position too much at the NFL level, but he can do it, so that's good too. He's a fun player. I think again, receiving, being able to run the ball, and he's another one I need to refresh and do a final evaluation on him because his breakout really came this past year. Like before the year, he was not being talked about a ton. Then obviously Arizona State has that breakout playoff run season, and Scatterboo is rising up the board. But from what I have seen, pretty low to the ground, compact runner with really good compact, efficient mass, and then he can catch passes. He's got a pretty good route tree from what I've seen too. So really versatile player, which I like. So he
reminds me of Mike Allstott.
I like that. Yeah, rocked up, just kind of like one of those guys who can't scratch his back.
Big neck,
exactly.
I just got a man crush on him. All right, what you got in the running back room?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think about. Hang on, I'm pulling up my list here, so I don't want to forget anything.
Everybody keeps bringing this up. I know. Sure, Scatterboo's a terrible pass blocker. I know. I just like him. Okay.
I will say, if you want a pass blocker, Kyle Monangai from Rutgers is the guy that you want. He is probably the best pass blocking running back in the class. Like this dude probably is a highlight reel of pass blocks out there. I'll leave it up to the viewers to find it. But Kyle Monangai from Rutgers, and he's actually he's a pretty good option on day 3 if he makes it to round 4 or 5. He's a player who's not the most explosive, not the fastest, but he's like the Energizer Bunny when he's running. His legs move super fast. He's another really low to the ground, combative rusher. We know Isaiah Pacheco also came from Rutgers. They tend to have that knee drive, and they just general anger toward defenders. Kyle Monangai brings that too.
They want the Rutgers. I mean, I'll be
That's
upset
true.
too.
Yeah, I know. I'd be angry about that as well. So, but he's a fun player. I like Kyle Monangai a lot. Going down the list here, assuming they pass on running backs in day 1, day 2, because Chase Brown did break out for them. I think he's going to be a solid player in the future. And do they have Zach Moss under contract for another year or no?
Yeah, but he's got that neck injury, so we don't know if they're going to keep him. Sounds like they're probably going to. I think they're going to cut him with a injury settlement. I think.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, so. Yeah, if they lose Zach Moss, I think Kyle Monangai would actually probably be one of my top picks for a replacement, just because you don't have to feel bad about putting him out there on pass downs.
And that's what we need. Can we pass the ball more than anybody? So.
He can pass block, and he can give a change of pace when Chase Brown is taking the load. So I think Kyle Monangai would be a great fit. If one of Ali Gordon II, he had a really down year this past year, but he was one of my favorite runners heading into the class. If him or Damian Martinez is there on day 3, that's another pretty good value deal. 2 guys who are a little bigger. They're more of bruiser types with the physicality, with the size, but both of them have pretty good, Martinez in particular, very good patience behind the line of scrimmage, very good footwork for his size, could be a very good player. And then I think one more that I'll throw out there, Jaquavius Woody Marks from USC. He was originally at Mississippi State, transferred to USC. He is one of the best receiving backs in the class. So again, if you want someone who provides value on passing downs, I think Woody Marks really provides that. And then he's another pretty low to the ground, agile runner for his size, really explosive in short spaces, tight quarters. So he provides a lot too. But this running back class in general, man, if you need value, like RJ Harvey from UCF is another one. If you need value, this is one of the deeper running back classes. Yeah, Taj Brooks right there. That's another one that I keep forgetting the names, but he's very dense. He's like a bowling ball, man. He's so fun to watch. Another guy who just brings the energy for you. This running back class, the moral of the story is don't stress too much about getting one early on. If you're the Bengals, because you already have a decent, serviceable, acceptable guy, and Chase more than acceptable. I mean, he had some really good plays for them. Yeah. But Chase Brown is the lead runner. You can feel comfortable with that. So if you want to get a guy on day 3, there will be options for you in this class.
All right, a couple of them here. KP says Devin Neal.
Yeah, Devin Neal. He was a guy. He's been falling down the consensus board. I still like him a lot on early day 3. I was a big fan of his. He's got very good energized motion as a runner. The foot speed is one thing that I look at with these runners on their cuts and then when they're accelerating. Devin Neal's foot speed is really good. He's a guy who you never have to worry about him being too slow to the jump. He's got pretty good vision as well. Not the biggest guy, not a guy who's going to churn through tackles left and right, but a guy who, once he finds space, he can use that space. And he's got pretty good receiving ability, very experienced, very productive. I would definitely be on board with taking him day 3.
Well, awesome, Ian. You have killed it as always. Even though you got to give yourself credit, you did fine. You did great. Well, like I said, I'll get you back on here in a couple weeks to get closer to the draft, and you'll be able to go into this stuff even more in depth. But I appreciate you as always coming on. Tell everyone where they can follow you and anything else you want to plug before I let you go.
Yeah, so thank you for having me on. Thanks for getting me back into the swing of things. It's been fun to get back into it. I didn't really expect to come back to NFL draft stuff. So to see such a warm
I'm glad
welcome,
you are. That's my message. It's like, you still doing the draft? Like, yeah, I just got back into it. Like, all right, cool.
Yeah, it's all right. Let's have them on, right? So
Yeah.
it's been great, and I'm humbled by the warm welcome, and I'm excited to see what we can do with some more time. But yeah, you can follow me at IC_draft on Twitter. X. I'm going to keep calling it Twitter, man.
It's or just call it Twix. You can call it
just
Twix.
Twix. There we go.
Yeah.
We'll mix it up a little bit.
Yeah.
You can follow me at IC_draft on X, formerly Twitter. Any draft questions you have, hit me up. The next couple weeks, I've actually got a full 7-round mock coming out this weekend. So keep an eye out for that. But then the weeks following that will be a lot of tape watching, a lot of catch up and final evaluations on guys. And yeah, we'll see how far we can get. But it's a fun NFL draft cycle. It's really gearing up that way, and I'm excited to go through it with all of you.
Absolutely, Ian. I appreciate it, man. Like I said, I'll reach out to you. We'll get you on definitely again sometime soon. And take it easy. Go check out his mock draft. 7 rounds. I'm excited. See you, Ian.
See ya.
All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Ian is awesome. Go check him out. Pro Football Network. He does a great job. Like I said, he's just getting back into doing the draft, like he said. And I don't care what he said. He killed it. He did awesome. So when I get back on, he'll get further into the draft. We get a little deeper dives into the later rounds of what potentially the Bengals could do. But thanks for watching. I've been live streaming on ZTV, YouTube, Facebook, X, Twitch. You can follow me on all those, along with Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. Shout out to all my sponsors, which are Priority Lawn and Landscaping. The grass is going to get greener. You don't want to cut it, or you got a whole bunch of properties that you own that you don't want to cut the grass, or flower beds you don't want to clean out, or you want to mulch them, or a shrubbery you want to get planted or taken down. Any kind of lawn and landscaping needs, think Priority Lawn and Landscaping. Give them a call at 513-430-6114. That's 513-430-6114. And you can also follow them on Facebook. And do me a favor. If you contact them, tell them I sent you. So they at least know you heard about them from me. I'd appreciate it. Also, T Properties. Looking for a rental property, a house, a condo, apartment, or you got a rental property that you just don't want to manage anymore. Give T Properties a shot. You can check them out at www.tpropertiesllc.com for all your rental property management needs and your rental needs. And my Westside peeps, go check out Hail Mary's, your ticket to the game, right there in the heart of Cheviot. Big ass TV screen, beer specials, food trucks. It's an awesome, awesome place. Again, that's Hail Mary's, your ticket to the game. And don't forget my boy Matty Myers and Meyer Windows and Doors. Like I always say, I have in my house. I highly recommend you get them in yours. They're awesome looking windows, energy efficient, easy to clean, and they look great. And you have a chance you can meet the man who created Jackpot Joey, which is Matty Myers, and you can see the Jackpot Joey mobile. So it's Meyer Windows and Doors. Check them out at www.myerscincinnati.com for all your window and door needs. Now, I will be doing, I got a couple live broadcasts that I will be doing. I don't have a graphic for this yet. Reds opening day. Me and the boys will be back down at Moran Logger House. I don't know what time we're going to do the draft, but it's opening day. Just come on down to the banks, go to the parade, come back over to the banks, come hang out with us, have some beers. It's going to be the boys, and we're going to have some special guests there outside Moran Logger House. If you guys joined us last year, we had an absolute blast. Do it again, and that'll be on Reds opening day. After that, April 24th, we get it right. NFL draft, first round, I'll be at MLT's, which is Mount Lookout Tavern. There are 2 Facebook events on it. One, the MLT's put out, one I put out there. Both of them just are right. You can check out either one of them. It's got the address right there. If you went to my shows at Millions, MLT's is right across the street, directly across the street from Millions. I'll have special guest Tyson Anderson, Bengal safety, will be joining us. The boys will be there. We'll be starting that about 7 o'clock. We'll go for about an hour. Stick around. We'll be there all night, hanging out. We'll do some Bengals trivia. We'll be giving away some prizes. It's going to be a fun night. Find out who the Bengals draft at 17 or 20-something if they trade back or if they trade up. Who knows? We'll find out what's happening. It's going to be a great time. And then the next night, do me a favor. If you have not got your tickets yet, get your ticket to the Project Game Day. It's their fundraiser at the Fulling Warehouse. It's $30 per ticket. You get the Fulling there. Midwest best barbecue, which is delicious. There should be collectible raffles there. Cincy hat pop-up show and more. It's April 25th, 6 p.m. to 11. If you want to get your tickets, you can Venmo them at Project Game Day or PayPal at projectgameday@gmail.com. I already got my tickets. Make sure you get yours, and we can have some fun throwing a football at bowling pins, drinking some beer, eating some delicious chicken wings from Midwest best barbecue, and you hang out with the Brew Crew and me and yours truly. And I think they said they're going to have some Bengal players there, some current or former Bengal players. So I don't know, it's going to be a great event. I know KB Art, I think he's giving away some awesome looking shoes. They got a lot of stuff set up. These guys are killing it. So make sure you guys support Project Game Day and their great cause. They're awesome guys. Other than that, you guys have a wonderful day. I think we're talking draft again tomorrow. Let me see here. Tomorrow, Thursday, I think. Yes, I had the boys from Gridiron Grading. We'll get their thoughts on the NFL draft, what the Bengals will be doing. Hopefully, we'll be signing. Hopefully, I'd love tomorrow to be talking about Tee Higgins signing a contract. That would be awesome. But we'll see what happens. Next week's going to be exciting. Next week, free agency starts. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals are one of the first ones right off the bat to announce at least one guard, hopefully two guards in free agency. Hopefully they add more. This would be a good year to sign 4 or 5 good veteran free agents offensively and defensively. And it wouldn't be the first time. The Bengals have done it before. So hopefully we'll have a lot to talk about with free agency drafts next year or next week with Jamar Chase contract, Tee Higgins contract, all that stuff. And remember always, Houday for life. And throw it up, everybody. That's just sports, baby. See ya!
Weekday nights, the city roars. Tune in loud, turn up some more. Cincinnati show, it's time to play. Sports with strawberry ice today. 5:30 sharp, don't be late. CTV, the sports awaits. Strawberry ices on the mic, energy, it's pure delight. Every touchdown, every goal. Feel the pulse, it's in your soul. Cincinnati heartbeats strong. Strawberry ice will lead the throng. Every touchdown, every goal. Feel the pulse that's in your soul. Cincinnati heartbeat strong. Strawberry ice will lead the throng. Feel the crowd, it's electric now. Shouting loud, they all know how. The CTV got what we crave. Sports with ice, it's waves and waves. Tigers strike and Bengals roar. Every game we want some more. Tune it in and feel the thrill. Strawberry ice, he's giving chills. 5:30 sharp, don't be late. CTV, the sports awaits. Strawberry ice, he's on the mic, energy, it's pure delight.